you're kind of the first line of defense for implementing the green building ordinance and green building standards, or educating them about, you know, well, this is our standards, but, you know, you can go one step further. And that would also fall over into the building department purview also. So is there currently a process where if a resident comes to you, they're just, I've got a recent example of this. Resident called me, her realtor, and recommended she come look at my house, you know, as a, and she just moved in, and so well, what we want to do is, how am I going to go through this process? And, you know, I said, well, the first you got to do is go to plan. Have you talked to the standards? Have you talked to the planner? Well, no, you know, is there a booklet or some kind of a form on the website where a resident can go and easily understand the process? If they're going to do a simple remodel, or if they're going to be doing structural work, or if they're going to tear it down, but, you know, something like that. So I think that that's something that the planner should be.
Sure, we can work with building on that, maybe get some more informational handouts on rebuilding. And at this point, the website's really difficult to navigate. So,
really?
Yeah,
yes,
we
it
can
is.
experience that. But right, we're kind of that first point person to help direct people where to go. And most people that we work with, you know, we kind of give the general information, and then as soon as they hire an architect, that's really the person that guides them through the process after that.
Right, and you know, some people they don't want to just hire an architect for all. They want to understand kind of what they can and can't do, and so they'll come if they're directed to go to the planning department. I think that you are the first point of entry. And what do we have in Atherton except our private residences? We have no building, we have no businesses, we have no retail, we have no, you know, that is our only business, is our property values. And I think that to the extent that our planning department, our building department can be super customer service oriented and educational to our residents, and make them feel that they're going to have their hand held the entire process, it will make it'll go a long way for making a happy new resident. So I'd like to see that implemented in your goals and your core services. As far as the heritage tree ordinance update, what prompted this? Why are we doing that? Aren't we happy with our heritage tree ordinance?
It was a request of the Planning Commission, so the Planning Commission initiated review. We're currently working with the chair on some items. One of the concerns of the commission is, as they evaluate a heritage tree removal request, is that the zoning code section says trees can be removed when consistent with the general plan. The general plan says trees shall be preserved to the maximum extent feasible while allowing private development opportunities. So they see some inconsistencies, you know, or a circular reference. One says look at the other. And so they want to take a look at how can they provide a little more clarity in the process, have some better standards that they evaluate trees under. And then there's been some concern from the tree committee about the tree protection standards during the course of construction, so we're taking a new look at that. I think the former arborist was out driving around and looking at sites more than our current arborist is, because we're very concerned about cost recovery. And so we want to look at maybe how can we do that and work with the building department more closely on that. So it was initiated by the Planning Commission.
I see. I mean, okay.
Okay, I just got a couple comments. You mentioned on chart 32 that I assume it was Mr. Danielson suggested that since we've got the building department, their staff, that perhaps we need to have an associate planner there. So I assume we took some time away from other people, or is this additive?
It reduced my time there.
Okay, so that person is very busy most of the time. I mean,
yes.
you're monitoring it when it just.
Very busy.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
And she's at the counter, right?
Okay.
Yeah, responding to customer inquiries when people walk in, the phone, email, reviewing building permit plans as they come through, preparing staff reports to Planning Commission. So, yeah.
Then I have a comment also on the heritage tree, because we've seen the heritage tree and a number of times it's come up on this, starting with the attorney's presentation. I know we love trees here, that one up there. But I read this, it looked pretty complete back in February. Herm sent it over to me and asked me to take a peek at it. And he also asked that it go to an arborist specialist that, who offered to do their time for free and provide some comments. So I would hope that before we even get the budget, we'd have this thing done, because this can't be a career. It looked like it was pretty well done. I mean, can you give us a quick update as to where it was? Because it looked like it had been rewritten, there had been inputs taken, they discussed it, I think, at the March meeting or their late February meeting, and we're going to have this budget done. Well, I guess it takes effect 1 July, so we've still got a couple months left to go. So, I mean, everybody's putting it on their goal for 2013. I would hope we could get a new ordinance done in 2 months. Just kind of my input.
Right. Well,
since I see it on 3 or 4 charts.
We're currently working on revisions. We met with the chair to have some direction. We need to take those concepts back to the planning commission, give us direction to write the specific ordinance. That's what the city attorney will review. Take it back to planning commission. So I have at least 2 more planning commission meetings and then a council meeting. And one of my concerns was taking it to planning commission at the same time as the library EIR. So we may be delayed a month on that. So.
And when it comes back to the
So
city
it's becoming a
council,
career for somebody.
when it comes back to the city council, there's a first reading, a second reading, and then 30 days, so it's gonna be a while.
All right, good. So,
But no, it should be
good job.
minimal in this fiscal year.
Okay, no problem. I have no further questions. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Would you like to comment on the tree ordinance or anything? Okay.
Public?
Thank you.
Randy?
All right, let's move on.
You're not public.
She's public, she's public. Building department, are you doing that or?
No, otherwise, the building department, the primary purpose and the mission of the building department is to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of the town residents by effective and professional administration and enforcement of building codes and ordinances. And the building department here also has code enforcement. Next slide, please. As far as the core services, it's performing the plan review on building plans, issuing permits, and doing the building inspections. Also, it's to review and adopt technical codes, investigate and report and respond to reports of violations of municipal and state codes.
This is a new chart, right? From what was sent out last night?
Did you update this one?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
this
because
is-
I have core services, mandated services, and it doesn't have this disbursement, etc. Okay, no problem.
Which one?
I think the SNP has already always been on there. We did make one addition to the goals, so you'll see that on the next slide.
Okay.
As far as the mandated services, the town of Atherton requires the collection of a number of deposits to ensure that certain requirements are being met as part of residential construction. And so part of the mandated services is to make sure that where appropriate, the deposits are refunded. Also, collection and maintenance of weight tags. And this is related to the recycling of construction materials. The next two, the disbursement of California Strong Motion and disbursement of Building Standards Administration. These are both state funds that we are mandated to collect and turn over to the state. And the last one is we also provide monthly reports to the county regarding building activities here in the town of Atherton. Next slide. As far as staffing, all the staffing shown there is contract staff with the exception of the office specialist. And it shows 20 to 24 hours a week. That's actually a full-time person, town staff, but who shares duties because she also supports, from an administrative standpoint, public works, planning, and also occasionally helps staff the post office at the town center. So currently, the FTE is about 4.8, and there are no changes proposed for next year. And as a point of reference, a year ago, the building department consisted of about 6.3. So there's been about a 1.5 person staff reduction. Next slide. As far as the department goals, the first thing is implement electronic document storage system. And what that is that everything now is we just have a bunch of hard copy road plans, and it's getting to be pretty unmanageable. So what we are currently doing is taking a look at different types of systems, and what you will be seeing as part of our budget proposal that we will be bringing in the next several months is funding to implement a electronic document storage system. The remainder of the bullets up there really deal with identifying initiatives to where we can make our services more accessible to the public, allowing them to do things online. In some cases, actually allowing them to get permits online, allowing them to check on the status of their plans, checking on the status of their inspections. Another service we think would be helpful is to automate the scheduling of building inspections. This way, and this would also save staff time as well, because through this system, they'll actually be able to call up on their computer and actually see the times available and go ahead and schedule themselves for inspections. And the last thing on the list there is continue with monthly development roundtable meetings. We found that this has been very effective, staying in contact with our building community, really making sure that the lines of communication are open, providing them opportunities to weigh in on any type of changes that we propose to make. And in fact, some of the changes we've been making is as a result of them weighing in that, you know, wouldn't it be nice if? And so we have taken a look at a number of those things and agreed with them that it would be good to do and with no impact to the town. Next slide. Oh, that's it?
This is for all the buildings.
Okay.
Okay, questions? Jerry?
Where does the post office fall in terms of staff responsibility?
We have an office specialist who staffs it.
The city
Well, I know that.
office.
Oh, I'm sorry, city manager.
Who's the manager that oversees those?
City manager.
That'll be in the list of evaluation, okay. And the library project manager that you got, you're looking for, where's that going to report?
The library project manager will be reporting to the city manager.
And will not be an employee.
I understand that, I just wondered where I would see that on an organization chart in the future. And, in terms of the, I think you haven't heard something about drainage, don't you?
That's it,
That's in the
public works. That's in
That's
the
public works, okay.
Okay. So again, I want to bring up and put in the core services of the building department operations that they attentive to the green building ordinance and advise the architects and the contractors and the people that come through the building department with plans for remodeling or new building, that they have these first and foremost presented to them so that they can take advantage of all the new technology of the green building ordinances. I know that we did just pass as a council the state mandated green building ordinances, but there's so much more that can be done, and hopefully we're taking the initiative to make those builders and homeowners aware of them. I just want to reinforce core services is customer service oriented. The building department, even though we're just contracting out and they're not, you know, we're not employees. I know that when we went to that new model, a lot of the residents felt like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my my employee of the town who understands my property, who understands the town. And I think that that has been proven to not be the case, because the reports that I've heard about the current staffing of the building department has been very, very positive. So thank you very much for stepping up and stepping into that and making all of the residents feel like you care for them and the town of Atherton. But again, Atherton has no commercial business, retail. We have no RDA monies that were taken away. Our builders and homeowners are our redevelopment agencies. I mean, it's our private redevelopment agency, if you will, that our private homeowners and home builders take the old housing stock and turn it into a new property that has a new property tax base. I know that just on my street alone, over the last year or two terribly distressed pieces of property are being redeveloped, and I know that we will be the beneficiary of a new tax base because of it. But customer service is paramount, and I don't want us to lose sight of that.
One more.
Sure.
Go ahead. Why is the library project manager reports to city manager and not to the community services?
So recommendation by the city attorney.
Well, because of the fact that the city manager is in charge of everything that happens in the town, and the project manager takes input from a whole lot of different sources, and there has to be a boss at the top of that food chain that can resolve issues and differences between the steering committee, the library itself, the city council members that sit on library committees, and the staff questions and issues, because remember, this project involves EIRs, building permits, outside money that becomes inside money. And because it was so complex and complicated, we wanted to put the person in charge to be the ultimate arbiter of all decisions, and that's the city manager.
Yeah, I question that decision, but.
The project manager will work very closely.
Well, I understand that, but depending on the background of the city manager, I would think that the skills you need to have to manage that kind of person will reside elsewhere, probably, rather than with the city manager.
The decision, despite the interim city manager's suggestion, the decision came from Mr. Kashawagi, John Danielson, and myself in conjunction and discussion about who could best handle that. The planning services is an outside contract. The zoning and planning aspects of it are going to, as we move forward, become less and less of an issue.
Sometime offline, I'd like to talk with both you and Mike about that.
I would like to weigh in on that, because it was my understanding that the library project manager would be reporting to Mike Kashawagi. That was, that would be the chain of command on that, because of his expertise and understanding of what the project would be. And then it would go on to the hierarchy of the city manager who oversees the project.
That is correct, by the way. That is it, but the city manager is the ultimate person being reported.
Of course, but I think that 90% of the management responsibility is going to be more of the technical side of things, which the city manager probably won't possess.
I think Mike Kashawagi was the same.
Well, and all your points are very well taken. I guess the best way for me to say this is kind of like organizational charts. Mm-hmm. There's organizational charts that theoretically shows who reports to who and who does what, but then there's a reality of how work actually gets done.
I think it's important from a city, from a resident standpoint to.
Well, and
they're going to have some perceptions of this. I think they're going to be kind of.
But not to shy away from any sort of controversial discussion or have open discussion. That's not the purpose of this discussion here today. So I'd like to ask the council as well as the public to try and stay on task. We're looking at the department goals and how we're structured, and that's a contract position that was reported on a couple months ago in the city manager's report, and we can bring it up and revisit it later on. But I think how we support the library is not the subject of the discussion we're having today.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking from a goal standpoint. I'm talking about whose goal that should be, whether it should show on the community services manager list or on the city.
And it doesn't show anywhere on anybody's
No.
list.
So I just want to raise that as a concern and not
Just
stand to a
one comment I would make, Jerry, is that Mike Kashawagi, whoever is the manager at that time, is certainly going to have a lot of input to this. I mean, it's not a question.
I'm not disputing it.
Okay, I think that adding to the overall goals, because at the end we should have some general comments. Not only the library, but the new town center task force, new town center plans need to have some responsibilities laid somewhere. So let's make sure that we record that. Because I think it applies both to the new town center as well as the library.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, no problem. I got a couple comments real quick. Chart 36,
We are not numbers.
well, but they are on hers and mine. And I'm going electronically, okay?
Building department resources.
Building department resources, sorry.
Okay.
You talk about the 4.8 FTEs, but most of those are contractors, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're paying a one-time fee, which is 58% of the revenue, and so they shouldn't really count into our head count, because whether it's 10 or 15, it doesn't matter, because your proposal says that we're gonna have a certain number of people on site, and we need to have overflow, we're gonna do that, and we'll handle it that way. So the head count really is and the head count we should be worried about, I think. Maybe we could show the numbers parenthetically, because you may have to scale up or down. That's Interwest's business. You know, because you've got service levels you're trying to maintain. But our issue is we have the office specialist and we have the code enforcement officer, which sometimes we talk about as 1 day a week, sometimes it's 2 days a week, sometimes I think we increased it to 2 days a week a number of council meetings ago, but now it's showing 12 hours a day, which is a day and a half. So I think we'd be real clear on what we need. But my question is on the office specialist, I guess what's the role, does the office specialist play in the building department? Is that like the front office and then coordinated and brings the right people up, or?
It's a variety of things. In some cases, because this person has previous building experience, where she's very helpful also is where we have multiple people at the counter. We do have a full-time permit technician, but in those cases, the office person helps with that too, to improve our customer service.
All right, okay. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it, but.
I could just add that the code enforcement officer, based on all the residents I've talked to, seems to be getting very, very good marks. And if there's any way we could afford, significantly more time for him, I would certainly support it, because I think that everything he has done, I've heard about, has been stuff that we really needed to do.
I'd like to, in accordance with Jim's comments, and be clear if we have 2 days a week, and if we do have 2 days a week, I think we could use them 2 days a week.
Oh, absolutely.
As opposed to 12 hours. On the subsequent chart, which is 37, if you have a computer, one that says department goals if you don't. So I agree with CAD checking. It automates things. Of course, it makes sure all his life's in the building department a lot faster, and archiving, things like that. Again, I just want to make sure that in our analysis on the potential of bringing in these online capabilities and making that sort of investment, which, in your proposal, you talked about some other towns that have done that we understand really what the investment is and who's going to get the savings. Because we do have a fixed price and we're sending a revenue, and and we've got to get the job done with what we've got. So if we're going to make an additional investment, it'd be good if we understood really where the internal rate of return on that was going to be, and make sure that if both parties benefit from it, that both parties share in the overall gain. Thank you very much. Any comments from the public? Peter?
Yeah, it's sort of a combination thing on this question about who reports to who. And it goes back to my earlier comment about the ordinance, which describing the responsibilities of the town manager. In California, we have a very strong, the model is to have a strong city manager, town manager. The two people who report to the city council are the city attorney and the town manager. And how the town manager conducts his or her affairs and organizes his or her department responsibilities are in fact their responsibilities, not the council's. And that's why I urge you to have that discussion before you go out and hire that person, because if it's the council wants to take away those responsibilities and reserve to itself the internal organization of the town manager, staff, et cetera, you're going to attract a very different kind of person than somebody who in fact has the responsibility for being the town manager.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Public Works.
Yes, the primary mission of Public Works is to provide safe, responsive, cost-effective, and environmentally sensitive maintenance, construction, and management of the town's streets, public facilities, and parks. Public Works also oversees programs and services to provide safe and accessible use of town facilities, as well as Homer Park. And we also are responsible for the design and construction of capital improvements and engineering review of private development plans for compliance with town standards and state and federal regulatory requirements. Next slide, please. A lot of core services. They primarily deal with maintenance of the streets, parks, and facilities. Public Works also develops and implements the town's capital improvement program. Also are very involved in disaster preparedness and emergency response support to the police and fire department, as well as reviewing private development plans and traffic impact studies. Core services, also representing the town on regional issues related to transportation, stormwater management, and flood control. Also NPDES compliance and inspections, that's stormwater quality, as well as staffing a variety of town commissions and committees. As far as mandated services, it's really one, and it's to monitor and comply with all the requirements of the stormwater quality permit issued by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Next slide, please. Current staffing, again, this is a mix of contract and town staff. Public Works Director, part-time, 24 hours per week. Full-time maintenance superintendent, as well as an assistant / associate engineer. Point on that is one person. It's really one person that is currently working at the journey level. As far as the rest of the positions on there, they're all contract staff. All the contract maintenance is contracted through MCE. Again, the office admin person is a town employee. We estimate that she spends about 8 to 12 hours a week supporting, performing administrative functions for Public Works. So on that chart there, 3 of the positions, your Public Works Maintenance Superintendent, your Assistant Associate Engineer, and your Office Admin person are all town staff. The rest of the positions up there are contract staff. When you add them all up, it's about 6.9 full-time equivalents. And again, for comparison purposes, a year ago, there was 12 full-time equivalents in Public Works. The Public Works goals. The first one is to develop short and long-range facility repair and replacement plans for the police department, permit center, and town administration. You know, we're well aware of the efforts of the Town Center Task Force. We're viewing that as more of a longer-term solution. And given the current condition of the facilities, we think it's important that over the next year we come up with a short-term interim plan to something that the town could utilize for in the next 5 to 7 years before the town center comes online. That's what that one's about. Revising the town grading and drainage standards. That's required as a result of new stormwater permit requirements. Identify necessary repairs and phasing for Atherton Channel along Marsh Road. In the past, there's been some structural deficiencies identified, and so we're in the process right now of soliciting for a consulting engineer to take a look at that, provide recommendations and some improvement recommendations to the town. Update the Parks Master Plan. You know, there's a lot of number of changes and opportunities that are happening at Homer Park. You know, one of them being is in the next couple of months, we're going to be talking with the preschool to take a look at, you know, they have, you know, long-term plans to see if so what to do with those facilities. The construction of the new library in the park. So it's because of those changes, it's a good time to update the Parks Master Plan. And this is something that actually was initiated by the Parks and Recs Commission at their February meeting, March meeting. And they'll be discussing again at their upcoming meeting here in April. The next one is develop and implement street maintenance strategy to maintain the overall pavement condition index above 75. What this means is that when you have an index of 0, that's basically dirt, and 100 is a brand new street. And condition index of 75 is actually, when you take a look at throughout California, that's probably in the top 5% as far as how well the streets are. And really visually, that's about, you know, lack of potholes and nice smooth surfaces for the cars. The next one is developing residential street level service standards for city council consideration. There's a lot of pretty major developments being proposed around Atherton that is definitely going to increase traffic. And at this point, there is really no way to identify significant impacts to residential streets, which pretty much comprises all of your streets. And so what this is about is developing some residential level of service standards for city council consideration. And if adopted, the town would then be able to identify significant impacts and be able to have projects, large projects, mitigate those impacts here in the town. Identify low-cost, environmentally sensitive solutions to improve residential street drainage. As all of you know, Atherton really doesn't have a lot of underground drainage. So as a result, when it rains, there's a lot of standing water, which doesn't create any flood issues, but more nuisance issues. And so the idea here is to identify some solutions similar to improvements that the town implemented on Selby Lane several years ago to get rid of the standing water. And the last goal is to participate in the development of solutions for regional flood control issues impacting Atherton. And this is really in recognition of the fact that you know, Atherton, along with a number of other cities, Menlo Park, Redwood City, Woodside, we all contribute to the same flood control area, and we really need to take a regional solution to identify needed improvements.
A couple of things. One is, you know, most of the water that comes to Atherton is coming from other towns. And I don't know what percentage it is, but quite a lot of it is coming from other places. And in the past, we have not been able to get them, in my mind, to pay their fair share of what it takes to keep that drainage channel clear and open. And we have been spending a lot of money on it. Even when there's red frogs there, we still have to spend a lot of money on it. And I think that one of the things we want to try to do now is to get a more regional solution, a regional solution that also involves the region paying for a lot of the stuff that we've had to do ourselves. And it's been very difficult because when you talk to any of them, they say, well, we don't have any money. Well, you know, neither do we if it comes to that. So that would be one area that I would like to focus on, to see if we can get what I would consider fair compensation from the people that cause the water to be there. The second item is, I think that Holbrook Palmer Park is a jewel for us. And in the past, it's been a jewel that has not shone very brightly. And forgetting all the controversy about what we build there, what we might not build there, the green part of Holbrook Palmer Park, in my mind, really needs a lot of improvement. I think that there could be a lot of things done in the green part that would make it really shine. And so, I don't know, you know, everything costs money, so of course we've got to put that in the budget, but I would like to see the park, really, the green parts of the park, really be given a lot more attention with new plants, that we recognize that some trees, if you overwater them, they die. Some trees, if you don't give them enough water, they die. And that one solution, for instance, for all doesn't work. We've lost nice trees for both reasons. We lost a huge oak tree because we were overwatering it, We lost at least 3 or 4 new trees that we planted because it didn't get any water. And I would like to have that as an item where we can really make that park stand out as something we're really proud of. These are my comments.
Jerry?
Well, it sounds like that there are a number of areas where we may have to go with short-term fixes to, instead of trying to get the long-term solutions. You mentioned facilities, and I would include Marsh Road in that list of things. Mike, are you going to be addressing the seismic types of things in this short-term plan, or not?
Yes, I mean, that's one of the things that is really driving the need to, you know, either refurbish what the town has or find other temporary solutions.
Now, this regional drainage group that you're representing in town, I think they also need to have a policy member to that. Have you appointed any council members to be policy representatives of that group? Maybe Kathy might be the obvious one because of the channel responsibility she has. You suggested, but anyway, one of the concerns I have is in the last staff report, I think it was, where at the last meeting, I don't remember the wording, but it attributed a lot of the water that caused flooding as coming from the Atherton area. And I remember having a conversation with Duncan about that they identified there had been a study made by Redwood City and a fairly significant percentage was from Atherton, and where he ended up explaining the kind of measures that Atherton has taken in trying to hold hold the water, you know, on